Hi Drive fans, it's Diablo here and I'm at the Queensland Museum today. So excited, I've had to wait for Corona to end to be able to come here, meet and show you the magnificent beast that is Mephisto. Check your armour-loving eyes on this baby. She was designed in 1916 by Joseph Vollmer in response to the appearance of the British and French tanks. At first, the Germans weren't really impressed by the use of tanks. The M4s, when they first started trundling across the battlefield, really instilled terror in the German soldiers, so much so that they coined the phrase, tank shock. But after a little while, they realised, well actually, they're kind of slow. We can stop them with artillery fire. We can deal with this. So, whatever. So, they started designing tanks, giving it some thought, but they really weren't that impressed by tanks. It wasn't until the Battle of Cambrai, when the British deployed tanks in huge numbers with great success, that the Germans wanted a lot of tanks and they wanted them now. So the little simmering design and construction of this that had been happening in the meantime really went into full blast. But they were only managed to produce 20 at that time. A number of other tanks were on the drawing board to be produced over the next little while, to be released perhaps in 1919 or 1920 if the war had continued, including the 120-ton K wagon, which was never built because a piece of paper was signed in a railway carriage. Game over, baby. There were also a number of reasons why there were only 20 built. Other than that, the Germans were behind the British naval blockade and their resources were very scarce. The Kriegsmarine had said, we can break this blockade if we build U-boats. So the majority of their very scarce resources were allocated to the construction of those U-boats. This proceeded along slowly. In the meantime, they did realise that there was probably some advantages and technological advances that they could use in the future, but they really weren't a big tank building nation at that time, which is really in stark contrast to how the Germans were in the Second World War, where, as we know, the Nazis were kind of big on tanks. They'd mastered the design and they had mastered the tactics of using tanks as well. This thing here on the front, it has 30mm of armour, which would deflect small arms fire and machine gun fire, but it really was not capable of deflecting anything of higher calibre than that. Of course, you see the cannon there on the front, the 57mm cannon, which was, depending on what you read, either of Belgian, British or Russian design. When this was first on the drawing boards, I believe they had 2 machine guns in those holes there, eventually being replaced by that cannon there. It had a very large overhang at the front here, which meant it was quite prone to getting bogged, and it got bogged an awful lot. It had a very high centre of gravity also, so basically if it saw some very uneven undulating territory, craters, threw its hands up in the air and defeat, toppled over. Not much good really. But on flat terrain, farmland, villages, roads, it performed exceptionally well. It went at about 12 to 15 kilometres an hour. Its range was 30 to 80 kilometres, depending on how you were driving it, and it chewed through about 500 litres of petrol as well in that time. So not terribly economical, but I don't think economics was really the name of the game. So these here, this one's been blasted off on that side over there, but these little flaps could be lifted up and reveal the tow hooks, which is how this thing came to be at the Queensland Museum, and I will talk to you a little bit more about that. History-wise, battle-wise, this thing made its debut on the 21st of March 1918 at Saint-Quentin. Now, apologies to any French or German people for my mispronunciation of your beautiful languages. I am Australian. There's only so much I can do with this accent, but I will give it a go. So yeah, at Saint-Quentin, 5 of these tanks, including Mephisto, were deployed. 3 of them actually broke down prior to engaging in any combat. So I don't think that was really a successful outcome for the A7V at that time. After Saint-Quentin, they went away for some repair, and it was at this time that 16 of the 20 acquired names. So this one obviously Mephisto, which is about Mephistopheles, the devil himself, up there running away with a Mark IV tank under his arm with great glee and delight. There were other names as well: Faust, Cyclops, Wotan, which is the name of a wonderful static display at the Deutsches Museum in Münster. Hello, Ralph Ratz, wherever you are. And also Schnook, which is a running replica which the Bovington Tank Museum in England have and use every single year in their Tank Fest. And you can see tons of footage of that on YouTube being driven around, which is kind of cool. Hello, Bovington Tank Museum. You're both on my bucket list, and I am coming to see you one day, so get ready. If we walk up the side here, come along up the side with me. You will see the tracks. The Germans decided when they were designing this initially that they wanted a tracked vehicle, having no template of their own, however, at that time to construct tracks. They basically hijacked a tractor design. There had been one tracked tractor that had made its debut at a Berlin farm show, and they used that as their template for this. It has 24 wheels, which are each individually sprung, which is an advantage over the British tanks. As I said before, this large overhang here meant that it got stuck in mud and craters quite frequently. This platform that it is built on here, at the time the Germans were very, very practical. As I said, their resources were very scarce, so they wanted to get the maximum out of their designs and their resources. So the chassis here is a flat chassis, which then the Sturmpanzerwagen, can either be built on, or the other design was an Überlandwagen, which was a track, obviously exactly the same platform, but a troop and supply carrier designed to go overland to where the troops were fighting in the trenches. I'm not sure how many of the Überlandwagens were actually produced more than this. It was extremely expensive in both resources, time and money. Each one of these was hand built. So even at the time, all 20 together, they were all totally different from each other. Those 20 were divided into 3 units of 5 tanks each, 5 in reserve. So its first little battle I was talking about before, only 1 unit was deployed. Its next little dance, however, after Saint-Quentin, which is at Villers-Bretonneux, where 15 of them were deployed at the same time. So their full complement, 3 units. They had a bit of success. They managed to break through the British lines on a 6 or so kilometre front and capture a lot of territory. There was a very successful British counter-attack, however. This baby in the meantime had been stuck in a muddy crater, initially behind the German lines. After the counter-attack was behind the Allied lines. The Queenslanders, the Australians, were stationed there, and that's when they pulled this baby out of her muddy hole, using those hooks at the front here, and brought it back here to Queensland as a bit of a trophy. Bloody big trophy, but thank you boys for doing that, because we get the pleasure of standing here today and checking her out, and so can you if you visit this wonderful museum. If you can't, however, keep coming with me. There's 6 machine guns around here, 2 on the back, 2 on the sides. Not all of them can be brought onto the enemy at the same time, so a little bit of a disadvantage. The armour on the side here was about 15 millimetres of hardened plate steel, and it's slightly sloped, as you can see, which I think was meant to aid in the deflection of projectiles. I'm not sure how effective that was because this thing seemed to get pierced an awful lot. So the sides of it were really quite vulnerable. Right in the middle here are two massive 100 horsepower Daimler engines back to back. Underneath here, which we cannot see, but I have seen in pictures, and it is a thing of clever beauty, is a huge combined gearbox which weighs the most astronomical weight in an equally massive casement sitting underneath that engine right there, and both engines connected to it. It could go forwards and backwards, but didn't have a reverse as such. This engine, 3 gears that way, this engine, 3 gears that way. Sitting up right on top of the engines, lucky for him, is the driver and the commander, who had an awesome overview of the battlefield from up there. However, he did have a blind spot in front of his tank for about 18 metres, but really good overview. Could see machine gun nests 100 metres or so away. This thing actually had a minimum crew of 18, if you can believe it. It looks really big standing next to it here, but I can only imagine how cramped and hellish it would have been in there for those poor guys. 18 to 23 was the crew. So you have your driver and commander up the top there. 2, 6 machine gun, each with 2. So now we're up to, what, 14. 3 on the front cannon, 17. We have 2 mechanics, 1 for each of the engine, 19. Somewhere in here you may have a pigeon handler or a light signaller and a number of infantry as well. So can you imagine how absolutely terrifying it must have been to be in there? 23 men crammed in, all of your ammunition, all of your personal things, your own rifles, a spare machine gun for the tank. If it got hit and you had to ditch, you take the machine gun and all of your rifles with you, and all of the ammunition for that. Must have been up to pussy's bow in there. We can't get in to see, unfortunately, but the museum here is going to give me some footage of the inside of this tank, which I will link to you. Very rudimentary. Although they did have, the noise in here was apparently quite incredible when those engines were running, which were hot and fuming out the cabin as well. Communication between the commander and the gunners was pretty well impossible due to the noise, but they did have a few aids which were pretty clever and nifty, I think, for 1916. That is, above each of the guns there was a red light and a white light which could be controlled by the commander, which was, the white one was Achtung, I believe, attention, pay attention, heads up, and red, fire. So they were able to communicate that way, and the gunners were able to know what the commander wanted them to do based on that signalling. There was also a device between the commander and the gunner at the front, whose vision obviously was very, very limited. And it was, I guess it was like a rough direction finder. The commander up there could move a cable which correspondingly moved a gauge in front of the gun there, which would give the gunner the heads up of which direction to aim in. He would then have to find his target, but at least he knew the direction that it was in, which I think is pretty cool for 1916. They did give this thing quite a lot of thought. And very practical, really, very versatile, which again is in total contrast to the Nazis of the Second World War, who, you know, as we all know, had a propensity to build bigger and more ludicrous and ridiculous weaponry, flexing their muscles. I'm talking to you, P1000 Radar, and you, Gustave Dora. Ridiculous. So somewhere in that 20 years, we switched from being highly practical to highly impractical, but that's fine, we love them for it. So as we come up here, you can see in here that it's going to be exceptionally difficult for you, I'm sorry, but where I am standing, you can see the radiator of one of those massive engines just right there, and you can imagine how much heat that was pumping out, full of 23 men being fired at rounds coming through the casement. Pretty terrifying stuff. I'd love to get in it, but I'm not allowed. If I ever come to see you in Bovington or in the Deutsche Panzer Museum, please let me get in your replicas. It would make my day. So as we come around the back here, it's essentially identical to the front. This thing could go forwards and backwards, like I said, apart from the fact that this has two machine guns instead of the cannon. In its original design, it did have the cannon, and that was removed in a lighter design phase of production in favour of the machine guns there. There's actually, I've only just noticed on this one, there's some, it looks like the people who captured it have scratched their names for all eternity into her steel, so go boys. The side as we come up here, it's pretty well identical to the other side except for the door. Two more machine guns. The roof of this was only 10 millimetres thick and it was not armoured, so it was very, very prone to damage. This one sustained quite a lot of damage to its roof while it was in that hole at Villers Bretonneux. They've left that in situ. This tank, unfortunately, Brisbane is built on a river. It gets big floods every now and then, which sucks. But this thing sustained some flood damage in 2011, and that's when it underwent its full makeover and restoration. The camouflage that's on this, I know that in its 6 months of action, it changed camouflage 3, 4, 5 times, and I have no idea what generation of camouflage this is. I am sorry. I'm sure somebody out there does though, so if you can send me a comment below and let me know, I would like to know that for myself. Anyway, we might be able to get a shot up there for you of the damage. It's going to be a little bit difficult for you to see, but obviously the shell went right through that 10 millimetre roof, like hot knife through butter. I like that they've left it there. The slats are actually the ventilation, so there was some ventilation. They did try and think about these things. I don't think it was overly successful in making it a much nicer environment for the poor guys inside it. Having said that though, joining a Panzer group was a very sought after. They had many, many applicants. It was an unusual working environment. There was some prestige, it was new, you weren't in trenches, so joining the Panzer units was actually quite popular. There is a door on this side, I apologise, I got that wrong. And you can see here the thought that's gone into in the little details. They've put some reinforcing on the bottom side of this door, so if this door happened to get hit by a shell, it wasn't going to blast in. So they did give this thing a bit of thought, even though it seemed to have garnered a bit of a negative reputation, and the Germans were more inclined to put their captured M4 tanks into battle on their own behalf against their previous owners than go ahead and make more of these babies. So there we are, here's Mephisto. Thank you so much for coming along and joining me today here at the Queensland Museum. I've had an absolute blast. Thank you to everybody here at the museum who've helped me out and given me the space to do whatever I want, quite frankly. I'm in awe, I'm gobsmacked. So thank you very much. If you liked this video at all, please like, subscribe, join me on YouTube, ring the little bell so you get notified of any of my new videos, and I'll see you next time you come riding with me. By the way, if anybody out there has tanks, APVs, half-tracks, kit and RAV, anything, please let me know. I'd love to see your armour. Bye for now.